Welcome, everyone. We are super excited to have some more one-on-one time with Deepak. As Deepak mentioned in his remarks, you can ask him more about user research, the processes involved in human-centered design or design thinking, and how once you've understood your community's needs, how exactly do you go about deploying that solution, whether it's deciding the technology that you use, and so much more. Deepak, would you like to add on to what I've just shared and kind of give a bit of a brief context just to recap and start us off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Lakshmi, for that. I think we can talk about design thinking. We can talk about the user research methods, what kind of what stage we are at, and talk about problems, understanding human needs, empathizing human needs, and how do we approach and solve a problem from a human perspective. Yes, those are all definitely interesting areas, and which are definitely required before we do anything there. Before we start any product or service there, these are all areas that are definitely required.
Thank you so much for that, Deepak. And as many of this group will know, that design thinking and actually understanding what the users need is something very central to all of the Unleash programs as well. I'm going to ask, is there anyone here who has a question about any of these topics? Until we think of one, Deepak, if you can share with us an example of organizations which you have seen, especially at the early stage, similar to the group that we have in this room. How have they used their user research very judiciously to actually develop their solutions in a way that they would not have been able to achieve unless they really committed to that user research?
Right. There are quite a lot of use cases there. One recent one, probably not too long, about a year or two back, we were trying to design heating and cooling solutions for architects, designers who basically design the heating and cooling solutions for the buildings, the big, large, medium-sized buildings. And this is a software that they use to understand what kind of tonnage requirements do they need in terms of heating and cooling and things like that. So we followed a process where we understood what their needs are, and we went into understanding a little bit of what vendors exist within that ecosystem, and let's say you have a user who's trying to use this application or this system, and how is that user influenced by? What are all the things that are around? What are the rings around which the user is influenced by? So sometimes it is not a very straightforward answer, right? So you will have many organizations who are part of it. You will have many middlemen who are part of that. So if when the farmer is producing something, you have quite a lot of middlemen who come into that. So if you want to determine what the needs of the farmers are, you need to understand that whole ecosystem completely. So like that, we try to understand that ecosystem by building ecosystem maps, experience maps, and we try to build journey maps, and how do we gather that data from the market? How do we gather that data in terms of research? How do we utilize this data that we have gathered, and how do we try to make sense? So when we look at an organization or a group, right, everybody talks a different language. When I say language, it is it is like your marketing, or it is like your sales, or different departments. Sometimes when it comes to startups, it's all, I mean, it's all, everything has to be done by a person. But if you're probably dealing with quite a lot of circles out there, so each and every circle out there is going to talk a different language, which is very specific and understandable to themselves. How do we combine these languages together and form a visualization that everybody can understand, that your investors can understand, your employees can understand, your customers can understand? So these are something that that will basically evolve, right? So today it's a small organization. Tomorrow it grows up into an enterprise. How do we sustainably evolve some of these documents? When I think documents are what we call as these journeys. How do we evolve? How does it evolve? So those are all definitely areas. And coming back, I think I'm missing the context. Coming back to the example case study that I was talking about, we did all of this. We did all of these methods for the customer, and we were able to achieve close to 2%. 2% of the overall global sustainability goals by enabling and empowering these designers, the heating and cooling designers who use the software to solve come up with solutions, design solutions there. By designing a good software for them, considering all these perspectives, we were able to bring about 2% of energy optimization in terms of their solution. So sometimes by solving others' problems, you solve the world problem, right? So so that's one case study that I think I can mention. There are quite a lot. I thought maybe this is a little more closer in terms of sustainability.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Deepak, and for going deeper into sort of the reasons why we really need that user's input. What are different ways to visualize or capture that input to make sure that everyone across different contexts and languages and functions are also able to understand and use that. We have a question from Lavanya about what kind of user research methods are needed when you are first starting to work on an idea beyond surveys. So maybe if you could go into a little bit more depth into the methodology of how you collected the user research, perhaps using the same case study or another one.
Right. See, one is surveys are definitely great, right? So let's, if you see, if we probably divide, there are many data gathering methods. I call surveys as one way of gathering data. So you have quantitative and qualitative ways of gathering that data. So survey is more quantitative. So you get a lot of feedback. You run close to 1,000 people or more than that, and then you try and get that feedback. A qualitative, we believe in at HCL, we believe in qualitative ways. So if you're trying to, let's assume that you want to start a petrol station. So it's basic common sense, right? So what do? Before we start, we talk to some people. Hey, is this a good place? So at the junction of this place, probably there is a cop who's standing there moderating the traffic day in and day out. It's a good thing to go and ask that person, how is that traffic here? Will it, if I probably start a petrol station, will it really work? So talk to some SMEs in the workplace, ask them some open-ended questions. When I say open-ended questions, have some protocol, have some 10 or 15 questions as your protocol. Talk to the SMEs out there, talk to the actual users, talk have some diversity in there, right? So if you try and break that up, if I want to if I'm starting a petrol station, then I would want to talk to some women who are of certain, let's say, who are working, and I want to talk to some men who are working in the morning and morning hours. What do they, how do they commute? What is their need? When do they stop by? And what time do they want to refill their fuel? Do they do it weekly? Do they do it on a monthly basis? What is their interval? And talk to some experts in the field and try to gather this data. So these are called, we call it interviews, one-on-one interviews, where you have some protocol and then you talk to them, try to ask them, understand that. This is one way of gathering that data. So to validate this, to add to this, survey is one way of gathering that data. And there are many ways of gathering. There are observation sessions that we can do. We can just stand there, look at an existing petrol station. You can observe what kind of customers are coming in there, understand how that problem is being solved, how's the vehicle functioning, is it what is the purity, what are their needs, right? So not everybody have the same need, right? So some want to do it every day because they are traveling more. Some people want to do it on a daily basis or a weekly basis. Understand that and try to look for extremes always. So somebody who's more frequent user, somebody who's an average user, somebody who's not using it much, and somebody who's using it more, is worth finding out why is that person using more. That way we will know quite a lot of context there. And what we do is, as a method, we try and talk to about 5 people. We don't have to talk to 100. We don't need 100 people out there. The maximum you can go is up to 5, minimum of 5, and up to 13 you can go. And there is a reason for it. We will need we need to we need a separate session to explain why we need that number. But for now, a minimum range of 5 to 13 people you can talk to and get their feedback. And those are good ways to start. Gather that data. When you have that idea, validate that idea, put up a quick prototype out there. Sometimes how do you make this prototype is really dependent on how you want to solve that problem. So it could be as simple as showing a kid that, hey, this is the toy of that petrol station that I made. Do you think it works? And sometimes you actually make a petrol station by just putting, you've seen these kids play, right? Role plays. This is where the office is, and this is where my petrol station is, and this is where the fuel pump is, and this is where I come and park. So it could be that way. And you can get players to that place. They can come in. How would they? You can make them enact. Most of the time, it's all common sense in terms of understanding how that, what is that problem? How will others basically empathize that problem? How will they try to solve that problem if we were to put ourselves in their shoes? Did I answer your question, Lavanya?
Lavanya, if you have a
Yes.
follow-up.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Deepak. It was really nice. So I was always
Lakshmi, I
thinking.
have a question, if I may ask. Oh,
We'll let Lavanya wrap up. Lavanya, was there any other question?
sure.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Right.
So thank you very much, Deepak. It was good to know the how qualitative analysis is also helpful to validate the idea. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Lavanya. And now we'll let Aishwarya ask her question.
Yes, thank you so much, Deepak, for sharing your wonderful experiences. Can you please talk about a core structural, ESG change that HCL, tech it brought about, and how it used user research to actually facilitate the transition? How these two pieces of ESG change and the user research interacted for the transition.
There are quite a lot. The same example that I gave, right? This is a case study where I mean, the reason why I took that case study is it is about heating and cooling. So I'll probably throw a little more light there. So this is a case study where we are looking at the multiple products at an organization which is trying to use probably about 10 different versions of the same product. So you can imagine the scale of it. So it's one organization. It's like you using Gmail, and this Gmail is being used by many different continents, and it's all completely different. And so the chaos that this creates. So we are looking at that. So imagine that if you're by designing heating and cooling solutions, you're trying to manage the energy efficiency of a building. And these are not small individual homes, and these are large scale buildings, malls and hospitals and things like that, where the consumption of energy starts from there, from these huge buildings and the people who work there. So so the temperature that you basically maintain, what temperature do you maintain in terms of it's probably facing north, or probably it is facing south. So what is the direction of the sun? What is the direction of the sunlight? What is the thickness of the glasses that you have you install in that building? Where is that room placed? Is it well lit? Really depends on what kind of energy requirements do you need in that room. So understanding when somebody is trying to design a solution for a building through an application, and it is very important to understand not just that person's need, right? So you need to understand a little bit more than that. You need to understand who are all the middlemen. So today, let's say Aishwarya let's say Lakshmi wants to purchase an LG, air conditioner. She goes directly to LG and she tries to purchase that from there. But what happens if it's probably a large building, and she cannot directly go to a vendor and purchase that? She has to go through quite a lot of middlemen, understand what that design is, who gives the best sustainability, who gives the best power consumption, which original equipment manufacturer is basically giving that best consumption there. And you do some analysis. You even sometimes hire some SME out there and do that analysis. So in order to understand that, you need to understand that ecosystem a little bit. Who are all the players when it comes to designing that energy for somebody to do this meeting by sitting in an office space, right? So understand their needs, understand all the middlemen's needs, all the stakeholders who are part of that ecosystem, try and understand their needs and understand how that is basically being influenced by the actual user who's going to use the application that you are designing. And by doing this, you get a complete picture, a very holistic picture of what is the animal you are dealing with. See, maybe your intention is to save a tiger in the forest, but there are many other factors for doing that, right? So understand and look at that problem more holistically, and that way we were able to. We had this. We took a phased approach. We had a research phase, and which went on for about 3 months duration, where we had to travel. We had to travel to the actual location, factories, and things like that. And then we do a lot of prototyping, a lot of collaborative sessions. Try to prototype a lot in terms of what kind of what will be the optimal way of solving that. So let's say there is a solution that exists within the competition. You want to solve that in about, it takes about 1 hour to build. Maybe you want to build it in 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes time. So these are all possibilities. So try and understand that core goal from there, and then take that goal as part of the vision for that product, and then get into the design. Then basically get into wireframing, prototyping, and things like that. Or if it's a service, then you work on who are the people who are facing it, who are the people who are front staging it. So sometimes it'll be a factory where you're trying to where we are trying to solve the problems in the factory lines, right? So in that time, who are all the people who are front facing that process? Who are the people who are back facing that process? So all these things have to be understood, and then come up with a solution. So this again goes back to that famous quote from Albert Einstein, right? If I were to given 1 hour to solve that problem, I would spend about 1 minute to solve the problem. I would spend about 55 seconds to basically understand that problem, and probably spend the remaining